Hello and welcome to this special Planet Leadville update regarding the Arkansas River Basin in Colorado. On May 7th, 2026, Altitude Realtors out of neighboring Summit County hosted a Zoom meeting entitled An Update with Water Managers as part of their series Resilient Ground. Among the presenters that afternoon was an engineer from Division 2 representing the Arkansas River Basin, which includes Lake and Park counties. Water managers were asked to specifically address water relative to property ownership for their region. Let's join the conversation.
I'm the division engineer. My jurisdiction is water administration from the headwaters of the Arkansas Basin, which is up in the Leadville area, all the way to the Kansas state line, and from the Monument Divide area to New Mexico, essentially. It's a very large basin. Because of our geography being one tributary system, unlike some of the other areas of the state where you may have an individual river basin that runs out to the state line and has maybe a different administrative dynamic, the Arkansas is essentially all tributary to the state line with Kansas, which is part of why we have a long history of litigation with our downstream neighbor. And most of the water, where there is water from the southern part of the state, it flows up into the Arkansas as well. For the purposes of this discussion, I'm really trying to focus my attention on the upper basin, which from a real estate perspective would include anybody doing work in the areas of Leadville, Twin Lakes, Buena Vista, Salida, Canyon City, Cripple Creek, and then from a county perspective, all of Lake County, Chaffee County, the lower portion of Park County, Teller, and Fremont counties all have we have jurisdiction over. Again, trying to really focus on where these differences in administration get people in trouble with respect to real estate. I was going to talk a little bit more about being over appropriated, wells and ponds specifically. Brian in his presentation was describing the over appropriation and the growing changes of over appropriation within Division 6. For Division 2, when Troy's talking about the amount of water that's yielded out of the Colorado River Basin and headed into Powell, we really talk about water in millions of acre feet in that context. 6 to 8 million acre feet leaving the state is in the normal range in the Colorado River Basin. Whereas the Arkansas, though we are the largest basin by area, we actually have the smallest basin by supply. In a good year, 800,000 acre feet total is our yield. In a dry year, it's around 300. This year, we're looking at less than 250. That's obviously 250,000 acre feet total of native supply. So that's why it really plays into that call regime and the over appropriated nature. The Arkansas Basin has been fully over appropriated, meaning all of the water physically available on an average annual yield has been spoken for, allocated to water rights since the late 1880s is when we became fully over appropriated. With that said, again, a little bit of a contrast to what Brian was describing, you may see in some of the other divisions, periods of call, a day, a week, in some cases, a year. The Arkansas has not had a no-call situation since August of 1999. So we have had a 365-day call every day on every tributary with no relief since 1999. And in fact, in order to have a no-call condition on the Arkansas, you would actually have to have the condition where John Martin Reservoir, which can store about 360,000 acre feet and is our compact reservoir down by Lamar, that reservoir has to be full and spilling, and there has to be unusable flow crossing the state line before we ever get to that condition. Right now, we've got about 10,000 acre feet of storage in that. And even in 2015, when we had the Miracle May, which was a period of time where it rained every single day for the month of May, basically, and we got more precipitation accumulated in that month than we ever had historically. Even that didn't put us into the condition to have a no-call situation on the Arkansas. So very, very rare occasions for very limited periods when we would see that. And what that means for real estate is that if you are representing somebody who's used to the dynamic on the west slope and they come over the hill into the Arkansas, we get crosswise with people a lot of times because, for example, they might want to go out and buy a little cabin and utilize a spring as their domestic supply. And then they come into contact with our water commissioners and find out that, in fact, that's not going to work because it's a new appropriation and it's never going to be in priority. So again, our call regime in a normal season, we're honoring calls that are as senior as 1874 this year is our call right now, which is dramatically dry, up to a normal year about 1884. And in big storm events in a normal year, we might see a 1906. That lasts year round, because even in the winter in the Arkansas, we have basically a basin-wide subordination agreement that sets the call kind of artificially to 1910. But that just means that only water rights that were established and diverting prior to 1910 can continue to divert. Everything else in this basin has to operate through a replacement plan, which is kind of what Troy was talking about, where we have junior out of priority diversions who are allowed to continue to operate, but only to the extent that they can replace their depletions, their impact to senior water rights on the river. So again, nothing new in priority. Everything has to require an OG plan, a substitute water supply plan temporarily. And that pushes a lot of people looking for housing, looking for, even down to the, we see a lot of tiny homes, we see a lot of RV type conditions and everything like that. Any kind of new or expanded water right has to go through an OG plan. And so we have a lot of blanket OG plans is what they're called, where entities such as the Upper Arkansas River Water Conservancy District has a plan that delineates the areas within the region that they can provide replacement water to. And that becomes an option for a lot of individuals, real estate specific to, municipal supply and that kind of thing. A little more into the wells with the subdivisions and that kind of thing. We have two classifications of wells, exempt wells and non-exempt wells. The exempt wells cover everything that is included in domestic, which is usually for use inside a single family dwelling or up to 3 single family dwellings, depending on the type, household use only. And then the domestic ones also allow for an acre of home lawns and gardens and fire protection. We also have separate well permits available for specifically fire protection, stock watering, or exempt commercial, which is a limited amount of water for commercial purposes. And then, of course, the non-exempt wells are required for everything that is irrigation, municipal, commercial, or industrial. The difference between exempt and non-exempt is literally exempt from administration, meaning if you meet the criteria for those parcels, say you have a parcel of 35 acres or greater, you could qualify for an exempt well to be constructed on it. Whereas if you don't meet that, say for example, the parcel was created after 1972, then you fall into the category of non-exempt and you are required to replace your depletions. And that could be for individual house under a subdivision, all the way up to that, commercial irrigation, industrial types of uses. So again, out of priority in junior, and that's mostly just for the fact that, again, in a basin like this, where the most junior your water rights ever get is 1910, the technology to drill wells really didn't even start until the 1920s and really didn't come into prevalence until the 1950s. And so, of course, if the call is always 1910, or senior.
I might take your backpack because it's a 30 and this is a 25.
Oh.
Thank you.
Sorry, what?
I think that was someone who was talking to somebody else.
No problem. And then I have just one more slide I wanted to talk about. Maybe if I can get it to switch. There we go. Oh, maybe I went one too far. Another area that really gets people into trouble in Division 2 specifically are ponds. We have a ton of people that come into the basin. They find some beautiful piece of real estate that they're excited about and they want to buy the house, but nobody asks the question about whether that gorgeous aesthetic fishing pond associated with the structure should even be there in the first place. And that really gets to be quite a fight in a lot of cases, because the majority, I would say, that we run into are man-made structures, and this is specific to man-made structures, right? We don't require natural lakes to fit within the administrative system, but where it has been created by man, there's a dam, it's excavated, and there's groundwater exposure or something of that nature. Those are out of priority diversions, and they have to be either operated in accordance with the water rights system, or they have to get that augmentation water to be able to offset. There's two components of ponds that are depletions. One is the first fill. Let's say you've got a reservoir and it's filled out of priority. That storage component is a diversion, and so is the ongoing evaporative losses from exposing that new surface area. And so, I just caution anybody in the real estate industry to make sure that if you're working with somebody who is either selling or buying, a seller should have their ponds and their water portfolio legal and lawful before they go forward and try and get a piece of property sold, because the litigation that takes place when, especially knowingly, they passed it off but didn't disclose those kind of issues has really become an issue, especially in the Upper Basin. We see, young couples purchase the house, really excited about it. And we had already been talking to the landowner prior to the sale about the fact that they needed to make their pond right. And then that getting, basically not disclosed and the transfer taking place. And then those new landowners being faced with anywhere from, at a minimum, you're going to be spending tens of thousands, typically $3,000 to $15,000, I would say, to try and start to remedy these types of issues, all the way up to, I've seen as high as like $350,000 to resolve an issue related to a pond. Sometimes that's the cost of augmentation water. Sometimes that's the cost of breaching, backfilling, or eliminating the pond. It's cost prohibitive for a lot of people in a lot of ways. And it can just really be a sneaky issue that catches a lot of people off guard. And we've seen some pretty tough situations when that was known and not disclosed. So with that, I think that's all I had. I was trying to be relatively quick, and we'll pass it off to Garver.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. That's great.
The Colorado Division of Water Resources offices are located in the 7 major river basins throughout the state. They employ water commissioners to ensure that the water rights priority system is followed, enforcing the decrees and water laws of the state of Colorado. Other staff manage use and measurement rules to ensure that Colorado remains in compliance with interstate and interbasin agreements. Hydrographers in these offices measure stream flow and reservoir levels and manage the statewide satellite monitoring system. Hydrogeologists analyze well logs and measure well levels to determine aquifer characteristics. And finally, dam engineers verify the safety of these structures. This state office also administers water rights, issues water well permits, represents Colorado in interstate water compact proceedings, monitors stream flow and water use, issues licenses for well drillers. That wraps up this May 2026 update regarding the Arkansas River Basin. To watch more presentations from other regional water managers in Colorado, head over to the Planet Leadville YouTube channel. We will continue to monitor the situation and provide updates when available. Thanks for watching, and thanks for checking in to Planet Leadville.